So that's why we had like 3 different cars, and they were all packed with my shit.
We couldn't even afford to like get a U-Haul or anything.
Well, I just was trying to save money. I mean, I had these people volunteer to help me, and I was like, yeah. We were all driving, and at some point I get a flat, and so like we all pull over, like all three of us, right? Yeah, it was like you, me, and Aaron working on changing the tire, and Cece was just standing there like posing like she was Posh Spice, like by the car, and people kept pulling over, and they're like, "Hey, do you need help?" Because you know she was hot or whatever.
They were only talking to her. They weren't even addressing the rest of us.
Well, they didn't see us, and so like we'd pop up from the other side of the car, me and Aaron, and we'd be like, "Nope, we're good," and then we'd like pop back down and get back to work on the car. Yeah, she was just standing there with like the wind blowing her hair.
Right. She was just kind of standing by watching. Like, you know, she was ready to help if we needed it, but I don't think there's really much that she could have done. We already had it handled. Let's get started. Are we taking the last train to V for Vendetta?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. All aboard.
Choo.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to Aflixionados podcast, episode 44. Man, already. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, with new episodes dropping on the first Saturday of each month, 5 a.m. Pacific. If you enjoy our content, please consider giving us a like. Our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, merch store is all conveniently bundled together for you in our link tree. We're now even on Letterboxd, so go check us out there as well.
I'm working on that one, though.
That's right. Work in progress. My name is Eric, and the other voice occupying your head this time is a devoted mother of 3, lab geek, comic nerd, HBIC, my sister, and co-host, Stephanie.
Woo!
Here on Aflixionados podcast, we mainly talk about films that range from mind-numbing to mind-blowing. We also cover TV shows and other forms of media. As always, we will be getting into spoilers here, and there will be only the healthiest amount of expletives tossed in. You have been warned. If you ain't ready, then get ready, because in this episode, we will be discussing the dystopian political action film V for Vendetta, released in 2005, directed by James McTeigue.
Remember.
Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
With the background vocals by Kira.
So this is James McTeigue's directorial debut and has been heavily involved in several other movies before this, such as Dark City, Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, the first 3 Matrix films, The Invasion, and Speed Racer, to name a few.
So anything having to do with the Wachowskis?
A lot of it, yeah. Even some stuff outside of that, but I mean,
I want to say that the Wachowskis wrote this one or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they wrote the screenplay. It's also no secret that V for Vendetta is based off of the 1988 DC Vertigo Comics graphic novel of the same name, written by Alan Moore, illustrated by David Lloyd and Tony Ware. Alan Moore is also known for having written Watchmen, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and Batman the Killing Joke, to also name a few.
Some good comics.
That's right. One of these we've actually done an episode on, Watchmen, which was awesome.
Right. And Speed Racer and...
Oh, yeah. Well, the stuff that Alan Moore wrote, but in terms of the other movies that Wachowskis are involved in, yeah. So did you want to go into a little bit about how you first got into V for Vendetta?
Oh, sure. So much like many of the comics to movies that we have covered. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hold on. I'm going to go kick her out. I'll be right back.
Oh, no. Violent fist fight that's going on right now. Ooh, it's ugly. The audience members don't want to see this.
Okay. Where was I? So this is actually the first comic book movie for which I actually read the comic. I was turned on to this one by someone in college, the same person who introduced me to Watchmen, Wanted. There are probably a couple others, but
some good ones, some not so good ones.
Some good, yeah. A couple of good ones, one really, 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 really bad one.
Movie-wise, anyway. Movie adaptation.
Yeah. But anyway, so I read I can't remember if I read the comic first. Since this was the first one, it was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say a good 18 years ago. And I don't remember if I read the comic first or I saw the movie first.
Mm.
But they definitely start meshing together in my brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just got into it from the trailer, and I just thought it looked badass. I was like, who the hell is this guy in the mask, you know? And he fights people with knives. That's pretty dope. I like that. I want to know what the story is behind this. So, yeah, that's why I went to go check it out. I didn't even know it was based off a comic.
I did. Yeah, and it ended up being, well, like I said, I kind of mesh the two together in my brain because it's been so long since I've read the comic.
Mm-hmm.
Less long since I've seen the movie, since I watched it yesterday and today. But yeah, I kind of wish I would have had time to read the comic again, but I definitely kind of mixed the two in my mind. So I don't know what came from the comic and what was just the movie.
Have you ever thought about writing your own comic?
Nah.
I wrote my own comic when we're in Hawaii, or actually on the way to Hawaii on the plane.
Oh my goodness.
You remember
What
those?
was it? I don't remember.
They were called like it was called the worst comic strip ever or something like that.
Oh, that does sound familiar.
And it's just like stick figures. That was my comic strip. I only made like 6 episodes.
You should have posted it on the internet.
Very like shitty hand drawn.
That's how they all start. You are good at editing the things.
I used to do some video editing for a hobby. So I would do like the DVD menu, like the bootleg DVDs. I would make the menu videos for those. And I even did fake intro videos for October Road. Didn't I also do a I did like an alternate version of like Superman Returns where it had like the Smallville theme.
Oh yeah.
That one probably got downvoted a million times because people are like, "Oh, get this stupid theme out of here. Let's stick with the original Superman theme."
That's funny. But I think the October Road one is still up there.
Both of them, season 1 and 2.
You know what? I'm not sure. I think I only remember season 1. I don't know. Because I think I posted it on my YouTube
Mm-hmm.
and it was just the one. So I think it was just season 1.
And I don't know if you want to share those because I don't know if you want people knowing your YouTube account.
I think it's my old YouTube account, so it's okay.
Oh.
I'll totally have to share it once we do October Road.
So, V for Vendetta begins in the near future. Britain is ruled by this political party called Norsefire, and it's a fascist totalitarian regime led by the High Chancellor Adam Sutler, played by John Hurt. Fun fact, he is Ollivander in Harry Potter.
And he also played a doctor in Doctor Who.
Was he?
Yeah.
Nice. Good actor, actually, even though you're supposed to hate him in this movie.
I know.
Yeah, he was very charismatic for sure. Kind of terrifying as this guy that you don't ever really see other than like his face on the screen.
I know it's just his head until the very end.
Right. So this government party, right, Norsefire, they control the populace through a bunch of just propaganda. They control the media and they control like what people can digest recreationally, and they imprison or even execute those that they deem to be undesirable. So even like races, they're very strict. It seems like it's most of the people are white, so I don't know if they're like white supremacists in a way.
Probably.
We do know for sure later on that they do prosecute homosexuals. I imagine alternative religions as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they mentioned at some point, like, homosexuals, Muslims, and a couple other things. So yeah, definitely very Nazi-like,
Very Nazi-like,
police state, totalitarian, like you said. Yeah, it's super fun. They did the whole get rid of all the art and all the books and all that stuff. So everything's
Now, were they kind of like just locking that stuff away, or were they destroying it, kind of like Fahrenheit 451?
I think I think they were supposed to destroy it because when Evie goes to Gordon's house and there's that piece of art that he has, and I thought that got taken away or that got destroyed or something, and he's like, so that's what they think, kind of thing.
But yeah, cool setting. I like these dystopian future type of settings.
Those are always fun.
So we're introduced to the main character, the person we follow the most, Evie Hammond, played by none other than Natalie Portman, your favorite.
Yeah, totally. Andrew wasn't allowed to watch this movie with me.
Is she okay in this movie? Are you all right with her, or are you just like,
Yeah,
no, fuck her?
no, she's good. She's a good actress. I just don't like how good of an actress my husband thinks she is.
Right. She ain't that good.
Not in the house. That's why I had to kick him out of the house.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, for this episode, because he would keep butting in.
Right. He'd be like, she's amazing.
She kind of starts off, she's like watching a little bit of TV and she's kind of getting annoyed with like the propaganda. So she's like, yeah, shut the fuck up, and just turns off the TV. And it turns out she's late for some sort of appointment. So I'm not quite sure what this appointment was. Did it explain that in the graphic
Yeah, it
novel?
does. Yeah, she was actually going to see Gordon when she goes to his house after she escapes. And he explains like, "Oh, I have to keep up the image, so I have to invite pretty girls over every once in a while kind of thing."
Wow. Okay.
Cuz I think she asked like, "Oh, why did you invite me over?"
Right. He wants the implication of like them having some sort of sexual relationship.
Yeah. And she was dressing up all nice too. I'm sure that's what she thought was going to happen. It seemed like she was just
Hmm.
doing whatever she had to do to survive kind of thing after her parents were killed and
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say that's kind of a strange couple, but all right. To each their own. I guess she's late for this appointment or this date, I guess you could say. And it's like 11 o'clock at night. So apparently there's a strict curfew where like no one is out at 11. Like no one is allowed out after 11, I should say. But, she's still trying to risk it. She's like, whatever. Like, what's the worst they're going to do? They're going to slap me on the wrist. So, yeah, she's trying to make it to Gordon's, I guess. And that's where she's approached by several men who you don't quite know who they are yet. I kind of thought of them at first as like thugs, right? Like a gang or
mhm.
something. I don't want any trouble. I'm just trying to get somewhere. They're just like, oh, I don't think you're going anywhere. And they flash their badge and they're like the secret police for Northfire. So turns out they're kind of corrupt as well.
Definitely. The whole regime is corrupt. Come on.
Yeah, they're drunk with power and they feel like they can do whatever they want. They're just kind of in the alleyways drinking and just having a good time. And they're like, yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
basically like the curfew doesn't apply to them. And then they were straight up about to rape Evie here as well in this alleyway.
100%.
Yeah, it turns out that they chose the wrong night to do some shit like this because someone else shows up, a masked vigilante, if you will. He comes to the defense of
Was it
Evie.
Batman?
What if there's a little signal in the air? It's like one of those Guy Fawkes faces up in the sky.
In the sky. No, nobody at this point nobody knew who he was, it seems. I mean, he's been doing his work for quite a while now,
Kind of
exacting
low
his
key
revenge, being Edmond Dantes over there.
of the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes, definitely obvious parallels
Hmm.
there.
I think he even says that he likes that story, right?
Yeah, and then she's the one who says, after they watch it, and he's like, "Did you like it?" And she's like, "Yeah, but I don't like that he was. It makes me sad that he was more obsessed with the revenge than he was with Mercedes." And I was like, "Absolutely." And in the end, actually, in the novel, he doesn't end up with Mercedes at all.
Okay. Yeah, what'd you think of this masked vigilante here when he first pops up?
I like his hair.
Do you like his hair, his like flat bangs?
I know. To me, it looks like it's really hot.
Yeah. How many layers is he wearing? He almost has like a Zorro outfit
I don't
on.
know, cause he has like the whole suit, and then all the straps and stuff with all his knives, the
Plus,
cape,
how heavy are
the
those knives?
wig, the hat, the mask, and yeah, how heavy are those knives? But I mean, it seems like whatever they did to him in that experimental facility
Hmm.
gave him extra strength.
Right. I think they mentioned heightened strength and agility.
Yeah, so he definitely became a little superhuman while everybody else died. And he was scarred all over, so he's Deadpool?
Yeah, in a way, I could see that without the healing factor.
Yeah, exactly.
This guy eventually introduces himself as V, and he's played by the legendary Hugo Weaving. Such an awesome actor.
But never in the entire movie does he say, Mr. Anderson.
He does not. So yeah, he is wearing a Guy Fawkes mask. I, for one, when I first saw this movie, I had no idea what the fuck this face was supposed to represent. I didn't know who the hell Guy Fawkes was. That's more of like
Well,
a British historical figure.
they actually explain that at the very very beginning of the movie. That little kind of historic, that little flashback scene at the beginning of the
Mm-hmm.
movie is explaining who Guy Fawkes is.
But I'm saying, like, going into this movie, I had no idea who the hell
Oh
that
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Why is this character so important? Why should I care about him? So yeah, they kind of touch a little bit on that, but for the most part, I think you're supposed to already kind of know the importance of this whole story and who this guy is, what he represented, and why V wants to carry on that image, that message. I think V for Vendetta was the one that popularized the mask. I think the illustrator was the one that
Well,
created that like caricature of Guy
no,
Fawkes.
actually, as far as I know, the Guy Fawkes image has been a popular image in the UK, a popular image of revolution. Like, it wasn't just V for Vendetta that did the whole remember the 5th of November. That is an
No,
actual, yeah. That's
like an
that's
actual
all.
saying. But what I'm saying is, I think that rendition of the mask with like the squinty eyes and like the handlebar mustache, almost representing a smile with like the high cheekbones, I thought that they created that specific look for the comics, and that just kind of became popular after the fact
Maybe.
because it's such a a memorable introduction. I wanted to see if we could go ahead and just quote V here on how he introduces himself to
Oh
Evie.
yeah, go for it. You better do it as fast as he does too. Go.
Hell no, but I'll try to read it in a way that you can at least understand what I'm saying. Voila! In view, a humble vaudevillain veteran cast vicariously as both victim and villain by the vicissitudes of fate. This visage, no mere veneer of vanity, is a vestige of the vox populi, now vacant, vanished. However, this valorous visitation of a bygone vexation stands vivified and has vowed to vanquish these venal and virulent vermin, vanguarding vice and vouchsafing the violently vicious and voracious violation of volition. The only verdict is vengeance, a vendetta held as a votive, not in vain, for the value and veracity, of such shall one day vindicate the vigilant and the virtuous. Verily, this vichyssoise of verbiage veers most verbose, so let me simply add that it's my very good honor to meet you, and you may call me V. Holy shit. That's all I gotta say about that.
Wow. I know.
Very wordy for sure.
Verbose, as he said, and expertly delivered by Hugo Weaving.
Yes. Very eloquently said by V, and yeah, it's just like it's so fluid the way he delivers it.
I wonder how long it took him to get it down,
Oh my god. Imagine trying to memorize that whole thing. That's only like
right?
a paragraph long, but holy shit.
I know. But that's what they do for a living, so.
Right, right.
And they make it look easy. Kudos.
So
You were right. You were right, by the way, about the mask. That particular rendition of the mask
okay.
comes from V for Vendetta, so good job.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So just to do like a little quick, I don't know, I guess like summarization of the backstory behind Guy Fawkes. Like I said, I don't know the specific details of like what he was trying to accomplish and like why it was so important and why it's still kind of celebrated to this day. More of like an English historical figure, not really taught on the American side. So that's why I had to kind of look it up for this episode. As I understand, Guy Fawkes was an English Catholic that was, as they mentioned, involved in the gunpowder plot of 1605, an unsuccessful attempt at regicide, or like killing a sovereign or usurpation
Yeah,
of
the
power
government.
against King James the First at that time. And I think the reason why they wanted to kill him was because there was like religious prosecution going on by the Protestants at that time. The plan was basically to blow up the House of Lords during the state opening of Parliament. Fox had extensive military experience, so he was kind of in charge of planting and protecting the explosives underneath. And after King James was anonymously tipped off about the bombs, he sent some guards to go check out the cellars, during which, in the early hours of November 5th, Fox was discovered underneath. He was captured, tortured, and eventually that's where he confessed that he planned on blowing up the House of Lords. Fox was sentenced to be hanged, drawn, and quartered. Like, so he was supposed to be hanged until almost death, and then basically be like slowly chopped up into pieces until he was
Oh,
dead.
fun.
So pretty fucked up, pretty barbaric. However, at his execution, Fox died after his neck snapped during the hanging. So some believe that he deliberately jumped to ensure that his neck broke because he was like, I ain't trying to get all chopped up alive. Since then, Guy Fawkes Night, also known as Bonfire Night, on November 5th, has been celebrated in the UK as a celebration of the king that had survived the plot's failure. That celebration is not necessarily for Guy Fawkes, but it's in remembrance of the king that lived.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting that Guy Fawkes's face is reused as symbols for revolutions, like in this story, you know?
Yeah.
I actually really dig the design for this. It's pretty iconic now at this
It
point.
is, definitely. That's why I thought it was so old. But I guess it has been at least around since the 80s. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I felt like just having that background was important because that holiday is still there, remembering the failure of the plot.
yeah.
It's interesting that V took it the other way, and he wants to remember November 5th as the day that Guy Fawkes valiantly gave his life for that revolution.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll find this stuff out later, but it looks like when they started this regime, they also started similar to, Nazi Germany. They started taking the people that they were killing and using them for experiments, and so that was what ended up happening to V. We don't know why he was taken. What minority he fit into that
Or
he
who
was
he was
taken for. Yeah,
before the
exactly.
experiment.
But they took him and a bunch of people. So it's interesting because it all comes together because he was in this facility and he was experimented on and he was the only success in the whole thing. Everybody else died and he came out superhuman basically.
The experiment, they were looking for a cure, right? Initially for the virus.
So like there was a virus and it's implied, I don't know if it's for sure that the government actually, yeah, I think they kind of find evidence
They
that,
talk about it later.
yeah,
Yeah.
the government released the virus in three places. One was at a school and that's where Evie's brother went and he got it and he died. And
Damn.
one was they released it into the water in a water plant. So it looks like it was like airborne someplace, it was waterborne in another place,
Mm.
and then there was one more place, I can't remember.
But all heavily populated
Yeah,
areas.
and so at the end, around 100,000 people died, and the reason that they opened up this quote unquote reason, their rationale, their whatever behind this facility was that they were trying to find a cure for this virus, but the government had the cure all along, and of course they distributed it at the right time to make them look like heroes.
Yeah, around the time of the creation
The
of
election,
Northfire.
yeah, around the time of the election. And so once that all happened, the chancellor was elected, or nobody opposed him at least, and he came into power and created their new government.
Does this sound like 4 years ago, perhaps? A worldwide pandemic, and then around an election time, a cure is kind of produced.
Yeah, but nobody, or I mean, there are definitely a lot of people who opposed it. So
Yeah, that's true. But I think there are a lot of conspiracy theories that it was created for a specific purpose and it was released by governments or people of power for control, right? And fear.
of course,
Interesting that there's some parallels here.
exactly. So that all turns into V's personal revenge plot, but at the same time trying to overthrow this government as well. So it seems like, yeah, he definitely had a couple of motives going on, because yeah, he was definitely trying to get rid of this government that created this facility where all this stuff happened to him. But he was
Mm.
also, so that was part of the revenge, but also he was going one by one and killing all the people involved in the experiments.
Personally, paying a visit. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like something this powerful, you can't just take down in a day. So I think he needed to do it in phases, essentially, kind of like chip away at it, weaken it over time. So
Yeah.
that's why it kind of spans like a year or two.
I would say longer. I mean, it depends on how long it was since when Valerie when Evie was reading Valerie's story. What did she? When did she say she got captured? 2015 or something like that. I don't. What year was this supposed to be? The movie, however long it was. It's funny because it's around this current time right now, but at the time
Right.
it was in the future. So however long it took, but V's been, because I think it probably took him a long time to create the shadow gallery, to be able to steal all the books, all the art, the jukebox, the piano, like all that stuff, bring it there. Um,
He wasn't actually doing any like real steps towards bringing them down until this movie, around the time of this movie.
yeah, yeah, and then he destroys what the Bailey.
So yeah, speaking of the Bailey, V, right after he saves her, he's like, "Hey, are you into music? Come with me," you know. And so he brings her along just to witness this show that he kind of is explaining it as. So he doesn't tell her anything other than like, "Yeah, I'm going to a show. Would you like to attend with me? It's right over
Yeah,
here." So he leads her up to this rooftop area where they have this unobstructed view of the Old Bailey, and he's just like, "Do you hear that music?" And she's like, "What music?" Slowly crescendoing, right? And
hmm,
over the little like mass PA thing that they have in throughout the town, it's playing music, which is a huge no-no, especially after
yeah.
curfew. Already, Evie is kind of uneasy, right? She's just like, "Oh shit, are we gonna get in trouble for this?" And he's just like, "No, you know, keep listening, keep listening. It's
I
gonna get
mean, yeah,
good."
but at the same time, she's like, "Oh, I hear the music," and she's kind of,
In awe.
and yeah,
Right on cue, the Old Bailey just blows up right in front of them. Apparently, V had planted some bombs earlier in the night, or maybe like earlier in the week. V, what I really like about the scene right here is how playful V is, because he's so
hmm,
excited. He's like giddy. He's just like conducting it or whatever, you know. He's all
yeah.
into it. It was pretty funny. I like that.
He even had a baton.
Right, and I like how V is kind of childlike at times,
Yeah.
cracking himself up and giggling to himself.
I wonder if that's kind of a little piece of who he was before.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe like he was a much happier person back then.
Yeah.
Hmm. Do you think he was also into classical music back then?
I think, yeah, probably. I wonder if he was some sort of artist, like if he was a musician or an actor or, something, a historian, or maybe he worked in a museum, or who knows. But I feel like this wasn't something that he developed a passion for after the, whatchamacallit, the detention facility.
Right, right. Which actually kind of makes it even more interesting, even more intriguing to me, that if he was such a passive person back in the day, maybe he just didn't want any confrontation with anyone and he just kind of wanted to be left alone to his arts. And then now he becomes this really dangerous activist,
Uh-huh.
terrorist, if you will.
So they say. So they say. Yeah, so this is kind of his introduction. It's now November 5th, and this is his introduction to the world. And then of course he promises, as promised, he delivers Evie home, and she goes to work the next day, which it turns out is at the TV station. She works for Gordon. That very day, V shows up and plays a broadcast, announces that a year from that day he's going to blow up Parliament.
Well, before that, what I thought was interesting was that Sutler, he's kind of already in PR mode, right? So he's just like, we need to get ahead of this. And so
Right. Yeah.
the government releases a report through their news station, which they control, to the public, stating that it was a planned demolition of that building, which obviously is not the case. But it's like, yeah, that the Old Bailey blowing up at like midnight, yeah, that was on
Right.
us. We did that on purpose.
But it wasn't supposed to have the music and fireworks. We don't know where that came from.
They try to take credit for it, but to like, control the image and control the narrative, but they still kind of blame certain things on V.
Well, they didn't blame it. They just said they didn't know where it came from. They're just like, oh, that just wasn't part of the plan.
Don't mind that.
Pretty much. And then he shows up at the TV station, does his broadcast.
He hijacks it and he starts broadcasting VTV, which is funny.
Yeah. They were trying to. The police were already there because they were trying to get Evie, right? Because I think they
She was the
saw,
only one they identified.
yeah, I saw her in a video with V, and they're trying to, like, discreetly catch her, so to see if she had any information on him about the
Mm.
explosion. Chief Inspector Eric Finch. So he, yeah, so she starts running and she's hiding. But during all that time, during like in the meantime, all this stuff with V is happening. Like he hijacks the TV station, broadcasts his broadcast, and the police
Good
are,
timing.
as a result, the police are already there because they're already looking for Evie. So they start trying to catch him, but obviously that totally fails.
Mm-hmm.
But then when um it wasn't Finch, right? It was like his partner, whatever his name is.
Yeah,
That finally like pulls the gun on him, and then Evie maces him and gets knocked out.
yeah. But she also gets like smacked in the head and knocked out.
Yeah, when she maces him, he swings his arm and hits her with the gun,
Right, right. Pistol whips
and
her.
so she gets knocked out. Yeah, so basically, at that point, V's like, "Well, they're gonna try and torture information about me out of her if I don't help her." I mean, he knows that she doesn't have information, but they're gonna torture her for it anyway.
Yeah, and kill
And
her,
he
most
couldn't
likely.
let that happen to, yeah, and so he couldn't let that happen to her, so he takes her.
There's a lot going on here because he already kind of thought that him meeting Evie, because even the fact that like the letter V is so important to him, and he just goes by the letter. Her name is Ev, and so V is also part of her name. He's like, oh, is that fate? And the fact that he runs into her again at the news station, which he didn't even plan. I don't even think he knew she worked there, but
No.
that was already part of his plan, was to hijack the news station. So he's just like, huh, it's her again, and she saved me this time. So I felt like not only was he kind of like compelled to save her because she saved him, but also like it shows that he is compassionate for her. He's thinking about this. He's like fighting with himself in his own mind for like a good couple minutes while there's pandemonium going on. There's like an alarm and everyone is like running out of the building. He could have escaped, but he was like sitting there like, fuck, should I take her? I don't know.
Yeah, and
And
he
ultimately
pauses.
decides to take her.
Yeah, and they see him in the video where he like kind of stands over her and pauses.
Fuck. Okay, I'll just take her
And then he takes her.
to his hidden underground lair somewhere.
That he named the Shadow Gallery because, of course, in a comic, every layer has to have a cool name, I guess.
That's a pretty badass sounding name. I'm not gonna lie.
It is, but it is also very comic-y. In real life, I would have just been like, this is my place.
Yeah. I mean, I like that better than the Fortress of Solitude, to be honest.
Yeah. Also DC, though. Speaking of DC, speaking of V for Vendetta being DC, apparently I was just looking at the history of Northfire because for funsies or whatever. And did you know that there's a show called Pennyworth about Batman's butler when he was young?
I heard about that, yeah, and it's supposed to be like a somewhat semi prequel to V for Vendetta
Yeah.
as well as Batman.
Yeah, so apparently it's Northfire that's the government in Pennyworth.
Oh, interesting, huh? Like, did his world already have a relation to this world, or did they just kind of shoehorn that in?
I think they shoehorned it in because they're both under the DC umbrella, but I don't think they were otherwise related before that.
Hmm. And I think it was kind of a dead IP at that time. So the creator of Pennyworth was probably like, "Hey, can I use this? I think I could come up with a cool idea."
Yeah.
So yeah, just recapping VTV. He was just saying that I'm the one that blew up the Old Bailey, and I'm doing this because you guys need to wake up. If you guys are with me this time next year, we're gonna go blow up the House of Parliament.
Exciting. And actually succeed, unlike Guy Fawkes.
Like we said, Evie wakes up in, was it the
The
Shadow
Shadow
Gallery?
Gallery. And it's pretty cool.
What's in the Shadow Gallery?
She wakes up surrounded by books, which is my dream.
With a dude in a Guy Fawkes mask.
Well, not that part, the books part. So she wakes up surrounded by books. She walks out. Of course, it smells amazing because V is cooking with real butter.
Aw, shit.
Shit.
I can't believe it's not butter.
No, it's real butter, not that stuff. Yeah, so she comes out and he's making her with the egg. What do they call it? Of the egg, they cut a hole out of the toast and they put the egg in there, and there's butter.
It's basically just that.
Yeah,
Eggs and toast.
and she's like, yeah, I'm starving. I'm totally gonna eat it. And it seems like because at first she comes out. Yeah, I take it back. I gotta go back a little more. She comes out and he basically breaks the news to her that she needs to stay there, and she's like, "You're a dick," and then she leaves. And then later she comes out and he's cooking, and she's like changed her whole tune, like, "Oh yes, that smells amazing. I can see why you saved me now. I'm on board," kind of thing. And from the get go, I'm like, she's faking it.
She was just hangry.
She was, she was angry.
But see, this is another thing that I think is kind of comical with V is that he's still wearing his getup, but he has like an apron on and he's like cooking,
And it's
and
all
it just looks
flowery.
so it looks so awkward.
It's funny. It is really funny. But he did have his gloves off, and she noticed that, and she's like, "What
Oh
happened to
yeah,
you?" And he's like, "There was a fire."
his hands are looking like ground beef, not
Yeah,
unlike Deadpool. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. He mentions that there's a fire, and she acts like she acts sympathetic, but I don't buy it. Not for a second.
Mm. She's trying to manipulate him.
Yeah, I think so. Um,
Kill him with kindness. But yeah, this is a cool place.
oh yeah, so yeah, there's a jukebox. There's a baby grand piano. There's
Kind of looks like a wine cellar almost.
it does. Yeah, there's stone arches and because they closed up all the only thing I think is they closed up all of the subways
Right.
and they according to them they sealed them shut, but obviously V has been working on them for quite a while because he's preparing. He said he's unsealed them. He laid his own track so that it would go under
Mm.
Parliament, and so I'm thinking that maybe he lives down there because they think it's all sealed shut, so they wouldn't
Right, right.
think to go find him there anyway.
What does he do about the exhaust and like the smell and stuff? Because I feel like they would be able to pick out someone cooking in this abandoned building or something.
Maybe he's pulling a little Walter White stuff, and he has some crazy filters.
Some filtration system. Yeah, I could see that. I was going to mention something, but I don't think it was important.
About the Shadow Gallery
We'll see if it comes back to me. But yeah, he has a bunch of books in there and some interesting
and some
stuff in there.
art, yeah, just all kinds of stuff that are banned and presumably destroyed. So that's nice, and it's very interesting because you find out later that Gordon's house is decked out in a very similar fashion, and
Right, right.
they both say because she's like, oh, what would happen, when Gordon reveals his Quran, and she's like, what would happen if they found that? And they both say something along the lines of like, if they found this place, this
They
would be the
did.
least of my worries.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. So the underground subway system, and like almost using as a layer, reminds me of Watchmen because that's where he kept the little like flying aircraft thing.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so similarities. It never does say. Well, I mean, at least not that I can recall, and not in the movie. It doesn't say exactly where he is. But yeah, there's sometime while she's there, or I guess while she's asleep or while she's having a tantrum or whatever, he had taken her ID, and for whatever reason, I guess Evie Hammond had access into what's his face's suite. That one the yelling
Yeah,
guy.
Louis Prothero, I guess is his
There
name.
you go.
Propagandist.
And so he uses her ID to get into his freaking bathroom. Why did she have access all the way into his place?
Also, that bathroom was like mirrors floor to ceiling. It was weird. It was
And
reflective.
well, it was all TVs. Like he was like watching himself.
And he was like reciting his own speech to
I
himself.
know, and like they're just like all around. So no matter which way he turns, he can watch himself.
That's how you know you've made it.
That is, yeah,
CRT TVs all over the place.
wow, yeah. So then he's watching his own speech and getting himself all worked up or whatever.
Really quick, is that the boss from Speed Racer?
Yeah, I think it is. I never recognize his face.
That's right. He's good at his monologues.
But seriously, and his yelling, quivering jowls and stuff. I don't know, getting all up in your face and telling you that you're making a big mistake.
Hmm. He has a different fate in this one. He doesn't get very far.
No, he did.
This is the introduction of V's calling card, which is the that
The
rose,
crimson, was it crimson?
Crimson Castle or something like that.
It's very pretty, but yeah, he leaves that rose. And I want to say in the comic it was violets to go with the V theme.
Oh, really?
I might have to research that, and you have to cut it out if it's not true.
Interesting. I think you might be right. Violet Carson,
Oh, Scarlet Carson. That's what it was called. It was called the Scarlet
and
Carson.
supposedly extinct.
The flower has been notably featured in the graphic novel V for Vendetta, but in the movie version is renamed to the fictitious Scarlet Carson, which Ruth grows for her partner Valerie. and V grows during his imprisonment in the Lark Hill resettlement camp. So the Scarlet Carson, that's what it's called, and that is his calling card. And he always leaves them at his murder scenes.
Ooh, and he murders them with like a syringe,
Poison.
right? A poison, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, poison, definitely poison. Well, I think it's just the one woman. What's her name?
Oh, just the
Delia.
doctor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because he seems most merciful with her. He's still gonna kill her, but at least she seemed to she at least seemed to feel some remorse for what she'd done, and she was the only one. Even though she did some horrible things, she thought she was doing it for good, and she felt remorse when she realized it wasn't.
It seemed like everyone else kind of like got worse as their careers went on. She made a big career change, and she even changed her name to Delia Surridge.
Yeah.
Because she just didn't want to be associated with any of that ever again, and she was
No.
living more of like a peaceful life. It seemed like,
Yeah, and doing a regular job.
as a coroner.
Regular can be, yeah, as a coroner.
She also felt shame because I think she knew deep down that like these are just guinea pigs and that they're probably gonna die.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's hard to talk about this movie without jumping around a lot.
Well, I mean, because it's like, yeah, he does kill quite a few of these important figures that were all part of the experiment that created V in the first place.
Yeah, which all came out from releasing that virus that killed Evie's brother. But yeah, so he kills that one dude, Prothero, and that was pretty violent. There's like a bunch of vomit, and there's blood in the vomit, and that dude's dead. They see it on TV that he died, and she's like, "My key card was missing. Did you have something to do with this?"
Maybe.
And she figures out maybe, and that's where she figures out that there's definitely more to this guy. He didn't just blow up a building; he also kills people.
Right. And I like how he addresses it. He's like, do you want the truth or do you want to lie?
Right. Either way, she's gonna know the truth. It's kind of how that situation works.
Yeah. Now she's starting to see the pieces are falling into place. She's starting to get the bigger picture of like who V is and what he's capable of.
Yeah, but I think all this time she's still planning on escape eventually.
She doesn't trust him.
At some point she agrees to help him and be the bait for that perverted ass priest.
Oh, this is for the bishop, right? Anthony Lilliman.
So yeah, so she agrees to be the bait, but obviously she was planning to escape all along because as soon as she's alone with him, she's like, "You need to listen to me. He's gonna kill you, and he's coming right now." And he had me leave the window open, and he thinks it's a role play, and so he's getting all.
That's the key word right there is bait for the bishop. What the hell does that mean? And that means that he likes sexually assaulting young people. He's a pedophile.
Yeah, he's a pedophile, and yeah, of course, when they bring the girl, they're like, "Oh, she's a little bit older than what you usually like." So obviously, he likes them to be underage because he's a fucking pervert and a pedophile. But when he sees her, he's like, "Oh, I should have never doubted your beauty," and she tries to help him, but then he pounces on her, and B comes, and he's like, "You were telling the truth all along."
And V's just like, what? What were you guys talking
Yeah,
about?
and she's like, "I'm sorry," and then she runs.
Huh. He's going to have some questions for her later.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, I mean, he finishes his job and he lets Evie go because what else is he gonna freaking do? Because he has a more important job to finish at that point.
Right. And she flees to the only person that, she feels comfortable running to, which is
Her old boss, Gordon, yeah.
Talk show host, which is played by Stephen Fry.
And yeah, so she discovers a very similar situation once she ends up in that house. He has a bunch of illegal stuff. They kind of have a similar conversation to what she had with B when she first discovered his illegal stuff. And
Even
she
the
also
breakfast.
discovers that he's gay. And the next day, he cooks her the same freaking breakfast. And he's like, "There's only one explanation. I'm V." And she's like, shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Shut the front door."
He has like slapstick comedy. He's almost like a Conan O'Brien almost.
Yeah, he's
kind of
like
wacky.
a late night talk show host kind of guy.
But pretty influential from what it seems like.
Yeah, it seems he claims he has. He talks about, "Oh, I have the most watched show. They're not going to do anything to me. They'll just slap me on the wrist and make me, deliver an apology and do some sort of mindless charity or whatever, and then that's it."
What's the worst that could happen, really? Little does he know.
Unfortunately for him, they do come for him, And just like when her parents got taken, she hides under the
Ooh.
bed and, watches them get beat and black bagged, which is throwing a black bag over their head and they're never seen again.
Erased.
Yeah, and then she eventually finds out that once they discovered the Quran in his house, they executed him. So he did too.
Oh man. So apparently that's like Creedy's signature thing is black bagging people, kidnapping them, getting whatever information, and then just never seeing them ever again.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention the reason he got taken though is because he
Oh, his bit.
yeah, he they had something, PC or whatever that they were supposed to film and air, but he's like, "Oh, I threw it out at the last minute and this is one that I wrote and it was a satire of the chancellor." And it was pretty funny, but and that was the one where he was like, "Oh, they're just going to make me issue an apology."
Right,
But
right.
yeah, they ended up taking and executing him.
So a couple things about this whole chain of events here. One of the things that I thought was, I don't know, kind of noteworthy was that they didn't just have someone in a mask, like a chancellor mask. It looked like they actually had the actor playing like a rendition of himself on the
I
show.
know, so I wonder if they had some like pretty good CG or something. Like, it's interesting because the way that they like deep fake things now, it seems like that was a little bit of a foreshadowing of real life.
Hmm. Yeah, because it looks spot on. It sounds just like him, and it's because they used the actual actor. The other thing I thought right here was that it seemed like this whole area kind of felt rushed. As soon as she got to Goran's house, I felt like they could have spent like maybe, I don't know, like 8 more minutes on the scene, kind of just fleshing out the relationship a little bit more. And then that's when I think they could have done the reveal, which I think would have been a little bit more impactful. But it seemed like they kind of rushed right into that reveal.
Yeah, I think back then they were definitely trying not to have movies be much longer than 2 hours. Like nowadays they don't care, but back then they were still trying to keep them not that long, I guess. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely would have made more sense because like at one point it seemed like she was going to be like molested by this guy, and then all of a sudden he's the guy she trusts the most. And where'd that come from,
Hmm.
And then she's like, "Why did you invite me over here then?" And he's like, "Oh, I have to keep up appearances and whatnot." But it's interesting. An interesting thing is that she seems to, despite all her efforts to be as incognito as possible, she keeps gravitating toward revolutionaries
Hmm. Yeah.
and doesn't even realize it.
Her parents were kind of activists too, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it told the story that after her brother died, they were like an artist and a teacher, some boring things. But then after the brother died, they became very political and they became activists.
It seems like it's in her genes, and it seemed like V knew who she was more so than she knew herself.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely saw something in her for sure.
He saw himself in her. He saw like a similar type of person, and I think that's why he does what he does later on.
And of course, I can't help but jump around in this movie for some reason. We skipped when he killed the coroner, which I guess I'll touch on that briefly because she was looking at the body of the bishop and she's like, "Oh yeah, he used the same poison as he used on Prothero." Finch brings the flower and he's like, "I know you're a botanist. Can you take a look at this flower?" And she's like, "Oh, it's a scarlet carson. They're extinct." But he's like, "Oh, take it and take a look at it. And if you notice anything about it, let me know. If anyone will find something, it'll be you," kind of thing.
But she low key knew exactly who it
Exactly.
was.
And she knew that she was next because definitely saw the pattern because she was the pattern. She was part of the pattern. So she went that night and busted out the journal that she had in some locked box in her closet so that she would have it ready to give to him, which he'd never even took, by the way. The police
He
ended up
read it
taking
though,
it.
for sure. He read it. I think he wanted to see what was in there, and then after he read it, he decided that I'm just gonna leave this for the police. I want them to see this. Like what she wrote in it, he probably already knew.
Yeah, so well, and I guess at least he could see how she felt about it.
That was a touching scene too. I will say that, like it, because she was like, "Is it too late to apologize?" And he's just like, "Never."
Never, yeah, it
And I
was,
felt like he genuinely kind of felt bad for her, but he
yeah,
still needed to do what he
yeah.
needed
He
to
was
do.
still gonna do what he was gonna do. He still killed her, but he did it the most humane way that he could, and just gave her an injection even before she woke up, and she
I killed you 10 minutes ago.
Fell asleep, yeah. And she just kind of fell asleep, and that was it. I feel like the other ones hurt.
So meanwhile, now the chief inspector, Eric Finch, played by Stephen Rea, he's starting to also piece things together, and he's really starting to understand what really happened.
I feel like, yeah, he's the only one that really started putting it together. And he was even the one who was like, everyone's like, oh, the only possible way he can attack Parliament is by an air attack. And he was the one that was like, or by train. And they're like, what? And
Yeah, out of here with
and he's
that.
like, why would you think that? And he's like, just a feeling.
Yeah, we took out the tracks a long time ago. Why? Like, no, don't be stupid.
Yeah.
And so they just brush that off. Also, I feel like because he works directly for the chancellor, everyone's kind of scared of him, just like the people are.
Yeah.
I think he's the only one brave enough to actually go against the chancellor and be like, well, I know that what I'm doing is wrong, but if this is the truth, I need to know.
Yeah. And
And he's also go ahead.
I was gonna say, whenever he has a private conversation with someone, he throws open that little, what is that, like it stops anything from listening kind of situation.
So it seems like it's almost like it just drowns out the conversation. That's what I was gonna say too, was he's very protective of who he shares his information with, and that's why he really needed to know before he brought his partner on.
Yeah.
I need you to know what you're getting into, and if you don't feel comfortable with that, I completely understand.
Yeah.
And the partner was like, no, I'm with you, I'm ride or die, let's do this. What
That's
you got?
so nice.
The plot is thickening, and that's when they start discovering that Northfire may have created the virus and purposefully released it out into the wild, killing all those people, so that way they can corrupt and manipulate the people into electing them into power, complete power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like that's definitely what they did. And at the same time of getting this history, of course, since it's related, you also get a little bit of V's history. Kira's outside my door saying, "Let me out."
Out.
Yeah.
In order for Evie to avoid getting black bagged, she tries to escape out the window.
Yes, she does.
And eat shit on her way down.
Seriously. And she almost made it. She thought she made it. And then right as she's exiting the gate, someone goes, "Gotcha."
Damn.
Puts a black bag over her
Got
head.
her. She wasn't smooth enough.
Nope. Poor little thing. So then you think, well, dang, she's captured. And she's black bagged and she's getting tortured for information.
Ooh, we get to see what the whole process is like getting black bagged.
While creating that environment for her, he also kind of recreated some of the things that he went through. And one of those things was learning Valerie's story. And he delivered Valerie's story to her the same way that he had it delivered to himself.
Right. Tucked away in like the wall, the little like crevice, yeah.
A hole in the wall, yeah.
Written on toilet paper.
Yeah, and that was the worst toilet paper I've ever seen in my life.
Some stiff ass one ply.
Seriously, just it was like parchment paper practically.
Yeah.
Not even toilet paper.
I will say really quick that Natalie Portman's head getting shaved, that really happened for the movie, and they did it in one take because they could only do it in one take.
Yeah, they could only do that once. So that was impressive. And she's definitely good at, acting out that emotion, being very emotional, and she has those good expressive eyebrows and stuff like that. Right. So she goes through all of that, and dang, she gets tortured. They eventually tell her like, "Oh, you're gonna get executed if you don't give us any information," and she's just like, "Fine, execute me." And they give her one last chance, like, "Okay, we're gonna take you to execution now. Do you have any information for us, or would you rather get executed?" And she says, "I'd rather get executed."
So what leads her to even get to this point where she's like so strong that she just doesn't even fear death anymore was learning about Valerie's story. And what'd you think about Valerie's story? The woman in the next cell.
Yeah, it was pretty touching, I think. And I think definitely is what gave her hope and kept her going when she otherwise might have just given up. Yeah, I definitely felt bad for Valerie and her story.
Damn.
The thing that was the most touching about it is that after all of it, she still felt love. She still said, "I don't know you. I will never talk to you. I will never hug you or cry with you or laugh with you or kiss you, but I love you." And yeah, that gets me every time.
Damn, know that I still love you, even though I don't know who you are. It's like the world was turning into something that was just like so void of love, and she wanted to let the person know that that's not how it had to be. Like we still have the choice to
Yeah.
still love each other, but it's up to us.
Yeah, and I think that's what makes situations like that so hard. You know, when you see when you hear about the Holocaust or when you see genocide happening, that these people are human, no matter who they are, and they're innocent, and they just want to live and love. You know,
Hmm.
it's sad.
And they're being prosecuted and targeted even just for no reason at all. Like,
For somebody else's gripe or agenda or whatever. You
yeah,
know, it's heartbreaking.
yep. Yeah, that was definitely touching for sure. So now we're to the point where Evie, she's like, all right, if you're gonna kill me, let's get this over with.
V declares her. You don't know that it's V quite yet, but he declares her free, and he just leaves with the cell door open, and she walks out, and there's a guard at the end of the hall, and it's a mannequin, and she's like, "What the hell?" And so she eventually ends up back in the shadow gallery,
Damn, that's what
and
was behind that locked door the entire time.
yeah, and she's like, "Well, I hate your ass. She's like, you're sick, you're evil," and I definitely was there with her at that time. I was like, that was pretty fucked up. Like
Yeah,
to make her go through all of
it's
that
understandable.
just to get, I don't know. Like, I mean, I get what he was trying to accomplish, but it was still pretty fucked up.
Yeah, I so when the reveal happened, when I first saw the movie, my mind was blown. I was like, "What the fuck?" She was in the shadow gallery the entire time, and that was V torturing her and doing all this stuff. I too didn't know how to feel about V. I didn't know whether I still liked him or not.
I know. I definitely, if it was me, I definitely don't think I would have forgiven him. But I'm no revolutionary. What can I say?
I think V understood if she never forgave him and never wanted to speak to him ever again. Like, he all he was trying to do was just make her stronger and bring out the inner Evie that he thought was in there.
And it turns out she was in there, which is nice. But yeah, he definitely kind of coached her through her final metamorphosis, I guess. She went through like her whole panic attack, and then they went to the roof, and it's very interesting because he was kind of cleansed through fire, and she was cleansed through water.
Mm,
The rain, and they both kind of went through the same thing, but in different elements. And
yeah.
I think that's kind of the difference between them because that's all he is fire. Like he's revenge, he's anger, but she is not so much.
Hmm.
I mean, she could have that rage and hate because she saw her parents get annihilated,
Yeah.
get disappeared in front of her, and her brother and everything, and finding out that the government was all behind it. She could be like that too.
And I do like the parallels of like the exact moment of the transformation, raising her arms up into the rain.
Yeah, and there's lightning striking and stuff like that. But dang, my eyebrows look good now.
They almost look like Guy Fawkes's.
I just need the mustache.
Yeah.
I definitely have like the cheeky area here.
Another thing I wanted to say was if you weren't already impressed with the fact that of how V was being portrayed by Hugo Weaving, the fact that you never actually see Hugo without the mask, respect there. But during this whole torture scene and everything, and like the incarceration of Evie, he plays different characters. He almost plays like a Creedy type of person. Like I think he's supposed to actually be Creedy. He's also like that person that's like handing her the food or whatever and like leaves the cell door open for her to walk
Mm-hmm.
out. And that he's talking in like an American accent, which is interesting.
I think it was actually an Irish accent.
Oh, was it?
Actually,
It sounded American to me.
at first it does, but when he keeps talking, you hear it a
Oh,
little bit
okay.
more because Irish is a little bit more. It uses more similar to American sounds.
And I felt like when he was in that character, he definitely sounded like the Hugo Weaving that we remember.
When he played that other guy that was talking to the cops, I can't remember his name, but that was a mask too, and it shows that where he kind of hangs that mask up, like where he has a bunch of other masks.
Yeah, that was the character is playing was that covert operative William Rookwood,
Yeah, and he ends up
V
being
in
dead for 20
disguise.
years or whatever.
And that was a pretty scary looking mask. Like that didn't look natural at all.
Nah,
Pretty
that's
creepy.
why he stayed back in the shadows, I guess. But it was good enough for being at night in the dark.
Right, exactly. And after all that, Evie still decides that she wants to leave, and she's free to go. But V's only request of Evie is that he see her one last time before November 5th. She was like, okay, we'll see.
Like, I can do that.
But we don't know where she's going or what she's going to do. So she leaves, and V's distraught.
He's distraught. He smashes a mirror with his mask.
Mm-hmm. I wonder what that mask is made out of. That thing looks like it might be bulletproof.
Clearly adamantium.
Clearly. You think if he threw his mask, it would come back to him, like Captain America?
Maybe.
Or that's vibranium, isn't it? I don't know. Whatever it's made out of. While the 5th of November is quickly approaching, the Chancellor is getting more and more pissed because he's like, why do we still not know who V is? Or why is he still not in our custody? We need to get him before November 5th. What the hell's going on, guys? Mm-hmm. He's getting pissed. And it's funny because he keeps putting all the blame on Creedy. He's like, Creedy, if you don't get him before November 5th, that's your ass.
Pretty much.
Creedy is kind of getting pissed off, like, why the fuck is this my fault? Like, I'm looking just as hard as everyone else.
Yeah. But he's in charge, so it all falls on him.
Right.
I know how that feels.
As he's getting more and more pissed, he's getting more, like, just visibly irate, right, with his rants. And
that kind of pressure is stressful.
This is desperation. He's trying to just, like, come off, like, really stern, try to maintain his composure as much as he can. But he's desperate here for his own life, his own safety. And I think for the fear of losing power as well. Because it's like, as it's approaching, I think he's kind of questioning, like, is this plan of V's really going to work? I don't know. He was scared.
Mm-hmm. Is this where he makes the deal with him?
Oh, yeah. V visits Creedy at his place and could have killed him, but he didn't.
Yeah. To kill the otherwise unreachable High Chancellor, V convinces Creedy to betray Sutler and replace him in exchange for V's surrender.
Because Creedy is starting to get pissed off with the Chancellor as well. So he's just like, man, fuck this guy. And so V is trying to use that to his advantage.
And they make a deal, and he gives him a chalk and says, if you agree to my terms, put an X on your door. Which he eventually does, by the way. As November 5th approaches, V basically has Guy Fawkes outfits sent to everybody. I think it's like the hat, the mask, the cape, right?
Yeah, and that's it.
So this is where it gets interesting because as November 5th approaches, he's kind of setting the scene for the blowing up of the Parliament, which is really interesting because it's not just, I'm just going to blow up Parliament, that's it. But he's also inciting chaos around the country. And so he distributes these masks, and people start using these masks.
Even before November 5th.
Yeah, and go out and be their own little rebels. And so, like, kind of through the whole movie, you're kind of watching this little girl. She's following him on TV, and it's clear that she doesn't agree with the government and stuff. And so she's going out tagging V's in the outfit on stuff. And then one time she gets caught by one of the, what are they called? The fingermen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he shoots her dead. All of a sudden the mob comes and they're like, what the fuck? And he's trying to be like, oh, I'm a fingerman. Like, you can't touch me. But then they
say, I don't give a fuck.
I'm assuming they killed him because he deserved it anyway.
So little by little, they're losing control.
Yeah, they're losing control. They're causing chaos. They're causing riots. It's just kind of waking everybody up to what's going on even before he makes his big attack. Mm-hmm. So then, Evie does return one last time.
Also, with you bringing up the little girl, this was for sure meant to be that little girl with the glasses that we've been seeing throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And I think that was to, like, make it so it's, like, really sad and you're like, damn, that's fucked up. But they kind of backtrack on this a little bit because at the end it shows her again and she's alive without glasses, I think.
Really?
Yeah. Like when everyone is like in Parliament and then they all like take off the masks, the little girl's there. And I was like, oh, what the fuck? I thought they killed her.
Oh, what? I don't remember that.
It kind of made me disappointed that they walked that back. I think it would have been more impactful had she died.
Yeah. Could have been another little girl.
Maybe, but it's like similar build, similar height and similar colored hair and wears glasses. I think they knew what they were doing. And she wore like the glasses over the mask, which I thought was kind of cute.
Yeah, I know. She taped it to the mask.
But I digress.
Yeah, so that was when he and Evie finally see each other one last time and they dance, which was cute. And then he shows her
The big plan.
Basically, everything he set up. Yeah, his big plan, his train, his explosives, all that stuff. He shows it all to her and tells her that he's leaving everything to her and that, you know, he's not going to survive and that it's going to be her choice on whether she blows up Parliament or decides not to go through with
I like
it.
that. It's like ultimately, you know, this whole time he knew for sure he was going to carry out the plan, but his last gift, because you know he didn't intend on surviving the night. His last gift to Evie was the choice to carry out the
Mm-hmm.
destruction of Parliament. And it's all automated. All she needed to do was push a button, but he left that up to her.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it definitely would have. It was a big choice because either you're starting an entire revolution or you're letting the whole world continue, or at least the whole country continue to suffer as it's been suffering for however long now.
Yep.
So, that's when V goes and meets with the Chancellor, right? And
The
Creedy.
little secret underground meeting, yeah.
Yeah, so Creedy delivers the Chancellor as promised.
And Sutler's a little bitch.
Yeah, he is, definitely. Um, and Creedy's a little bitch too. But he proceeds to kill literally everybody there.
V never killed the Chancellor. He let Creedy do that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Creedy kills the Chancellor, and then V
Pathetic.
kills everybody else. I like this fight scene because I thought it was really interesting because you see like it's all in slow motion, and you see the knife paths as they go through the air as he throws them,
This
as he
was
swings them.
bad
It was
ass.
really
This
cool.
was the big climax of the movie, and it did not disappoint.
Yeah, so definitely a really cool fight scene, but unfortunately, V receives some fatal injuries as a result.
You know, in some ways, I guess you could say, well, first off, I'll say this felt like a superhero battle, like the big standoff. It's like the main bad guy, well, now after Sutler, and then, you know, his goons versus V. He's outnumbered. He doesn't have healing abilities or anything. So, you know, he's mortal just like the rest of
He's
us.
not quite Deadpool.
Right. And it's like, how's he gonna win this fight? You know, how's he gonna get out of this? I don't think V ever really intended on surviving the fight, but
He did not.
I felt like in a lot of ways this battle could have been avoided, right? Like, I had he actually gone first and attacked first, he probably could have taken out half the men and Creedy before he even got shot. But he waited, he let them get their clips out on him, and then he was just like, all right, my turn. And you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, he already had like endured all of his injuries,
Mm-hmm.
and then he went and killed everybody, and still managed to like make it back
That's
to
impressive.
the underground. Yeah, he seems to be a pretty impressive dude, you know.
And also, shout out, this is, I mean, total like comic book type scene, but when he makes his first attack, he pulls up the two knives and splits them to make a V before he throws them. Sick.
Yeah. I didn't even think about that. Man, so yeah, it gets a little heavy.
Yeah.
He basically, you know, he admits that he's fallen in love with Evie, and he dies in her arms. And I think she kind of has the option of unmasking him there, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
She chooses not to. And here's a little personal tidbit. This is the part where I have not only kind of mixed up the comic and the movie, but I've made up my own scene in my mind that doesn't seem to exist because I can't. I mean, I haven't reread the comic, so I don't know if it happened. I can't remember if it happens at another point in the comic, but after he dies and she chooses not to unmask him. In the movie, Finch finds her and they set the train to go, and they walk off together, and then he asks who V was, and Evie's kind of like, oh, he was my mother, he was my father, he was this person, he was that person, like basically all the important people in her life, all the people that shaped her. But in the comic, she actually puts on the outfit herself and continues on as V, as the new V. And then here's where it gets interesting because in my mind, I made up this scene where she lays him on the train, like in the comic and in the movie, and then she does unmask him, but under the mask is like all the important people in her life, like her father, her mother, you know, all the blah, everybody she said in the movie. And then eventually she takes off one last mask, and it's just the Guy Fawkes mask again, and then she just leaves it. She doesn't she doesn't continue. And I'm like, where have I seen this freaking scene? You know, was it something that maybe happened? Oh, it might have been Watchmen.
Oh, what?
I wonder if it was something like that, like in another comic. Dang, I can't even remember but I could have sworn it was this one. Like I remember seeing the scene in my head, you know, like of him lying on the train, like surrounded by flowers, and um, but in the comic, he actually she apparently has a glass casket to put him in to put on the train.
Not so elaborate in this one.
Right. So I seem to have made up that whole scene in my head, but in my head it was very symbolic, you know, that he represented everything that made her her.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he was just V.
That's why I wanted to give props to Hugo Weaving for never taking the mask off, and like so you never see what his true identity is, because I feel like that's not really important. Sure, you could see what he really looks like, but it's like what we've known him as this entire time is the Guy Fawkes mask, right? And everyone else is paying homage to him by wearing the mask. And at this point, his identity is the mask. His true identity is the mask. And it's like what he is underneath doesn't really matter. The symbolism of the mask is what's important here. And that's what's going to transcend the test of time. You know, that's what's going to carry on.
Yeah. And so everybody shows up with their V costumes on, hoping to see something. And of course, they're expecting an air attack. So they have like all the military, like all over the building and stuff like that. But of course, what only Evie, V, and Finch know is that it's a train.
And Finch actually, he lets
her.
Well, he follows his hunch, and he discovers that sure enough, he was right, and he actually sees V dead already in the train, and Evie kind of contemplating whether to carry out the plans. And I think she was still like she was on the fence about what she wanted to do up until V came back, and I think that's when she kind of made up her mind.
I mean, I kind of feel like she was going back and forth until she pulled the lever. You know?
Really? Yeah. Either way, I think it was like kind of last minute. Towards the final hours, it was like minutes to midnight. Big Ben. I liked how they showed it. The time was like 11:05 to make a V.
Oh yeah, and that's also November 5th. Remember the 5th of November.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So she sets the train going, and
Finch allows her. She actually convinces Finch to, help her carry out the plan by letting her push the button, because he was going to stop her. He was like, I'm not going to let you kill. I think what he thought was going to kill the people, but it was just going to blow up the building.
Yeah.
She somehow convinces him, like, V understood that the country needed a change. How it is right now is not what it needs to be. And Finch was like, fuck, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, then they end up going to the top of a building to watch Parliament blow up.
In similar fashion, it was like the same song that played, right?
Yeah, the same song from a year ago. So they go up there, they watch it. He asks who V really was, and that was when Evie gives her little speech. Who he was. He was my this, he was my that, he
my
was
father, my brother.
And then at the end he was all of us.
Damn. And then Parliament blows up. End of movie.
It's pretty spectacular.
And that is a wrap on V for Vendetta. If you made it to the end of our podcast, then you just started a revolution.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Any final thoughts or closing comments?
Man, that one takes me back because honestly, I hadn't actually seen it since I saw it in the theater. I'd only seen it the once in my life, so now I've seen it twice. I read the comic once in my life, and I remember that even less. So it was definitely nice going back to it.
It made an impact. For having read it and seen it only once leading up to this podcast, you still fondly remembered it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And it kind of makes me want to reread the comic. So maybe if I ever have time again, I'll do that.
Nice.
With all the kids and stuff, who knows?
Right.
Who knows?
And I really like how they kept it as a ambiguous ending, because I felt like you didn't really need to see the aftermath. It's kind of left up to the audience to imagine how things turned out. But I think, all signs are pointing to the fact that Norse Fire is probably done.
Yeah, I'd like to imagine so. Everyone important to it is dead, and the people don't believe in it if they ever did. I don't know. It's just a hot mess. I don't know how the people are starting to rise up against them. I don't know how they'll sustain it,
Right. But just as long as Norse Fire is out of there, that's already a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
Shit, I feel like this movie definitely holds up 20 years later. It still looks
Yeah,
great.
it's 19 years old,
The
so
acting is awesome. The plot is
hmm
interesting, and it's impactful.
it is. And I feel like it's not 100% unlike what's going on today, you know?
Hmm.
I feel like there are definitely some parallels. So maybe, I mean, I don't know, maybe we're not going in the right direction.
Needs a
But
change.
hopefully, I know. I'm not saying that there's going to be a revolution right now, but we'll see.
Hmm. Again, I mean, I couldn't say enough good things about Hugo Weaving in this movie. He killed as V, in my opinion. You know, never showing his face is a big thing because a lot of actors, I feel like they almost demand that their face is shown at least once in the movie. But similar to not the Stallone Judge Dredd, but the Carl Urban Judge Dredd, which is just called Dredd. That movie is dope. And Carl Urban doesn't take off the helmet once because I don't think you're supposed to see what Judge Dredd looks like underneath.
Right. That dude's a good actor too. If you look at all the various roles that he's played, it's like they're never the same person
Right, right.
ever twice, you know?
And I think if you're okay with Judge Dredd, just like the story of it and like the concept of it, Dredd is for sure one to see because that movie is fucking awesome.
That's what I heard, but I've never seen it. I should watch
Highly
it.
recommended. But yeah, Hugo Weaving never takes off the mask. He's V the entire time, and I love that. I love the fact that you don't ever see his identity, and he's just like a walking, talking symbol of revolution. Like that's what he's supposed to
Hmm.
represent. That's why he was okay with dying at the very end because I don't think he's meant to be sticking around for a long period of time. I think he needed to only do a few of those major changes like take out the authority figures and then make like a big statement like blowing up the was it the Old Bailey and Parliament. So those were like the main things he needed to carry out, but he didn't really need to stick around for the revolution to happen. He just needed to get the ball rolling.
Yeah. And that's how a lot of it I feel like is sometimes like he is somebody that starts it, but they end up becoming kind of a martyr to the cause.
Yeah, definitely.
It's tough leading a revolution.
I almost feel like in a way anyone could be V. That was the whole point of it,
Mm.
was that it's
Yeah,
like
and that's why everyone shows up in the
everyone
masks.
was given a mask because everyone is part of the revolution and everyone can make just as big of a change, if not bigger than the one that he made.
Yeah,
We're all V. He is all of us.
exactly.
Man, the letters again, Valerie's letter in the cell, that shit fucked me up, but in a good way.
Yeah,
Truly
it was
moving.
very.
That acted as motivation for him was his love for Valerie, even though he never knew her either, and she didn't know him, but they
Yeah.
still loved each other.
Mm.
How many times is the letter V or the number 5 referenced in this film? Because I feel like it's sprinkled all throughout.
2000. I wonder if anybody counted it.
For one, his cell is numbered 5, but Roman
Yeah,
numerals, so V.
yeah.
Evie's name, right, is like V is emphasized in the pronunciation of Evie. And funny thing is, E is the 5th letter in the alphabet.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that.
November 5th, of course.
According to this Reddit thread, the director tried to get a V in every single shot of the film. Oh my goodness. So even V's favorite phrase is, "By the power of truth, I, while living, have conquered the universe," which translates into Latin as, and I'm about to butcher this, but "Vi veri vene versum victis vici."
I mean, that's still better than my delivery earlier.
Nah. Man, I wonder what Hugo Weaving is up to nowadays.
Killing it, as always. Oh, you know, another V I just thought of right now,
What?
if I recall correctly. The final fight scene. So Creed is in the middle, and then his goons fan out to make a V
Oh,
as
yeah.
they face V.
Mm. The way that he's standing with his legs apart, if you flip him upside down. Just kidding.
He does a handstand and makes a V. All right, anything else?
I think I hadn't watched it again because you know how I'm a sucker for happy endings, and not that this ending was particularly sad, but it's not exactly happy. It's more hopeful, but
It's
it's not
hopeful,
happy. You know what I mean?
right?
And since I love my happy endings, I think that might have been why I haven't revisited it in so long, even though it's dang good.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad we did this.
Oh yeah. Are you watching anything lately, film or TV?
I'm watching the last season of Emily in Paris, or the latest season. I don't know if there's going to be another season, but
I'm actually surprised it's gone on as long as it did.
Right, I actually love that show. I think it's really good.
It's
For
kind of a feel good.
you have to like that sort of thing, yeah. And then I'm watching the last season of Umbrella Academy.
That for sure is the final season.
Yeah, yeah. And there's a whole
With
lot of other
Elliot
stuff that I want to
Page.
watch. His voice has gotten deeper
Oh,
this
really?
season.
Okay.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot more stuff I want to watch, but I had been waiting to watch it with Andrew, but it hasn't been possible lately because our schedules haven't been matching up. So I'm contemplating just watching some stuff without him.
Okay.
I really want to see the latest season of The Boys, but I've been waiting on him. But Andrew insists on finishing the Lord of the Rings show, the first season.
You can't do it side by side?
Right? Why can't we do it? He's like, we have other things we're watching. I'm like, so?
That's like Brenda, though. I'm not gonna lie. She can start 10 different shows. Wait, what's going on with the last 5 that we're watching?
And then sometimes I'll just forget about something. Even if I was into it, I'll just forget about it because I'm just watching too many.
Yeah.
And then eventually I'll come back to it and be like, oh yeah, I was watching this show. And then I have to start over.
Nice. I watched a couple movies in theaters. Saw Trap, the one about the pop singer, and he's Josh Hartnett is kind of like a serial killer that I guess is trying to kill the pop singer while also taking his daughter to a show.
They put on this concert just to catch him, right?
Essentially, yeah, that's kind of the big reveal. Yeah, I mean, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, so of course there's going to be some twists and turns. But what I really like about Shyamalan is that he always has interesting premises. I feel like he's good at creating these ideas. The problem is carrying it through to the end. That's always hit or miss.
Yeah.
The other one I saw was Cuckoo. That's with Hunter Schafer from Euphoria. I don't know if you've seen Euphoria.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that's a good gritty teen drama. Awesome acting in that one. Highly recommend if you have Max. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Just those 2.
For real. I can't believe this is episode 44.
44.
We made it past episode 42. We're hitting our stride.
Mm-hmm. Is 42 the big milestone?
Have you seen the new Ghostbusters movie? Not the new one, but the first new one. Yeah, because this one was a Frozen Kingdom or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in that one there's this kid whose nickname is Podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And he has the podcast, and he says something about it's not until after episode 42 that it really hits his podcast hits his stride or whatever.
I mean, some might say that about our show as well. So yeah, we're just now hitting our stride. We're finding our groove. Thank you for listening and joining Stephanie and I. If you like what you heard, please consider giving us a like and subscribe. New episodes drop on the first Saturday of each month, 5 a.m. Pacific. As always, you can find us wherever you normally get your podcasts. This has been Aflixionados Podcast, episode 44, V for Vendetta. And we will see you all next time.
Yay. I never know what to say to this.